Okay, welcome everyone. This book talk is Buddhist psychotherapy, connecting early Buddhism to mindfulness and Western psychotherapy. And Liang Tian, myself, and Venerable Dharmadina co-wrote this book together. We anticipate the book actually coming out at the end of August, beginning of September. And we're very excited about sharing our work today.
Today, what we're going to be talking about is basically what it is.
I think you gotta put it closer.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So briefly, just introduce you to what it is we did, and then more about us and then the structure of the book, and what basically identifying what Buddhist psychotherapy is and what's covered in this book. Of course, this is a book talk, so we're going to be talking about the book, and I know that he's also coming around giving you flyers on this. So we first start with what is Buddhist psychotherapy. Okay, you read that.
I could. Okay.
And I'll elaborate.
So Buddhist psychotherapy comes from the early teachings of the Buddha Gautama, documented in the Nikaya, to think about a different approach to psychotherapy. And we're going to talk about what we really have done is there are over 10,000 suttas, and basically pulling from the suttas kind of what would be relevant for psychotherapy. And we're going to talk about suffering and the cessation of suffering. And those are the relevant suttas that we incorporate in this model of Buddhist psychotherapy.
And part of the basis of that part, the whole basis for the book and for Buddhist psychotherapy is based on, as Deborah was saying, the Nikaya, what the Buddha actually said. So this is not a vague the Buddha said, and not a vague thing about what Buddhism is about. We actually go back to the Nikaya and we pull out relevant, as Deborah was saying, and this particular quote is the relevance for psychology. We are talking about the same topic, and
I was going to just and when you see this reference on the bottom, that is where you would find it in the Nikaya. So we actually tell you where does that sutta sit.
So if you go to sort of Buddhism and meditation and mindfulness and all that, and they say Buddha said, without that little particular quote, you know that you have no idea what the Buddha actually said or not. So that is the basis for the book and for Buddhist psychotherapy. And
so these are the authors of the book, or co-authors. This is me.
This is me.
And then our other co-author is Venerable Dharmadina, who is a Buddhist nun ordained in 1983. So she brought that Buddhist expertise to the book.
Yeah, and she's been not only practicing, but she's been teaching. She teaches not just from the position of a nun, but she's also teaches meditation. So she's taught Theravada meditation as well as Tibetan meditation for about 40 years. And part of what we wanted to do in bringing in a Buddhist meditation teacher is to make sure that our approaches, what we're saying, is not only accurate but tried and true through Buddhist practices. And of course, you know why we're together. Deborah is the expert on psychology. And while I am also a psychologist, I have done such a deep dive into Buddhism that I end up talking in Buddhist language, and Deborah reminds me, and that's her great contribution to this book, which is do it in such a way that psychologists can understand. And so if you understand something that I'm saying, it's because of Deborah.
So we just tried to bridge all three of our expertise together within the book so that psychotherapists could actually utilize it. And we knew that because APA was publishing it, we wanted to be so that Western trained therapists could understand it.
And the goal is that if you read this whole thing, you'd be able to then know and conduct therapy based on Buddhism, um, as opposed to Buddhist informed, as opposed to taking specific techniques from it, but the whole frame and the whole structure. So the structure of the book follows the Buddhist findings. And
You want to do that
You-
one, or
you would do. You want to do this?
I think you should.
Okay, I'll do that. This is what we do, we'll collaborate, which is we took the foundations of Buddhism and Buddhist psychotherapy from we explain that in the book in the first section. And then the second section is basically Buddhism. If you translate Buddhism into psychology, it's really a qualitative phenomenological research design what the Buddha did. So he went and looked at and examined the question of what is the experience of existence, and his findings. If you think about Thorndike and his findings about animal behavior, it's sort of like that in the same vein. And the findings are the three marks of existence. And those are all conditions being impermanent, all things are not self, and all conditions being unsatisfactory. If you've been in Buddha's land, I recognize that as three fundamental principles. And this book actually follows that. We explain each one of them and then do clinical applications of each one of them, and how we actually not just idealize to use it, but actually cases that, case samples. And then the Buddhist interventions. The Buddha did, the fourth noble truth and the noble eightfold path. If you've been in Buddha land around, you hear that. But actually, those are interventions, his intervention programs. And the mindfulness and the mindfulness-based meditations that we have is one of many intervention programs and intervention techniques. So the book covers the interventions that he does for meditation, and then intervention programs he has that is not based on meditation. So we cover that. And as we say, how do we know? I mean, we're claiming we're based on Buddhism. So how do you know that our claim is actually actually true and said by the Buddha? So just a brief history. The Buddha gained after 30, I think 6 years of meditation. He studied under several meditation teachers. He gained enlightenment. And at that point, he decided he taught for 45 years. As Governors pointed out, the teachings were, he taught for 45 years. There's 10,000 plus suttas. And at his death, there was a whole bunch of, monks coming in together to witness and be together for his death. And along the way, one of the monks said, that's fine. He's gone. We don't have to follow anything he says anymore. We can do whatever we want. And of course, there were the seniors going, oh, that is going to happen. This is not good. So what they did was they gathered 500. That's what the literature says, but I always say 500 loosely. It just means that they gather a lot of the monks and said, we are going to remember, each one of you are going to remember what it is that you heard the Buddha say. And that is the Pali Suttas. And since Pali is the language that the Buddha used for his teachings, and Pali is not a written language. So the remembered verses of the Buddha is all in oral tradition. So there's lots of rhyming. So if you're reading the book, there are lots of like repetitions with one word differences. That's because it's the oral tradition. And what was developed at that first Buddhist council is chanted, right? It's the same chant that goes on every single year. Monks come together, and if you look at this, you would think that this is like some off somewhere. This is actually Northern California. In, in Abhayagiri Monastery, they gather every morning at I think it's 4:30 for their meditation, and they do chant. And every year, the whatever sect it is, they get together and they chant. And then at every Buddhist council worldwide, they get together and chant. And that is to make sure that we're chanting the same thing. And that is the authentication for knowing what it is that we say is actually came from the Buddha. And what they chant is actually all of this. And what it is that we are concerned with is the suttas, because what they remembered was what the Buddha told them to do, the discipline, and then what he taught. So the book is based on what he taught. And these are the sort of like the really technical stuff, and the publications are the 5 Nikayas. And there is a tradition in Buddhism that the Dharma is free for all who ask. So if you want, you can just actually Google internet, and all of these are PDF that can be brought up, or you can buy hard copies. They're pretty good at in finding things. And the 5th one, there has not been one published book in English, so that's why we have it down in where you can find it digitally. So in the book, what we do is we will introduce the idea and then quote the Buddha and explain. The Buddha explained it, so we'll explain it what Buddha explains, and then we'll translate that into psychology lexicon, and then do clinical examples. Okay.
That's the translation part, because that's where we needed to take the sutta, but then how would you then apply it within a psychology framework?
Right. So each discipline has their own unique language and lexicon. So we're just doing the Buddhism to psychology. And so what Buddhist psychotherapy is that we're using the early teachings of the Buddha Gautama as documented in the Nikaya. As we said, this is what we were saying earlier. Now you have some basis and some explanation for the legitimacy of our claim.
So we thought it's really important that we put this out there, because when we started doing presentations on this, people started coming up to us and asking us, were we trying to indoctrinate people into Buddhism? And so we needed to present this slide to ensure that people understood that we are not trying to do a religious, go into religious studies. We're not trying to have you do religious practice, nor trying to convert you into becoming Buddhists. So we needed to do that because there were people that were coming up to us and saying, is this what you're trying to do? And that is not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do, we've had many conversations about this, is as time has gone on, when mindfulness was brought here, we actually found quotes from John Kabat-Zinn, from Marshall Lenehan, talking about the West is not ready for the religious and cultural origins of mindfulness. And so we are going to separate them out from the mindfulness practices. So when you see people doing mindfulness, that is why you're seeing the variety of ways of how mindfulness is being practiced here and meditative practices. What we wanted to do is connect the cultural and religious origins of mindfulness and all the other interventions that are in the suttas back to the origins. And we know that practices, we know that theories come from culture. And so we really believe by connecting it back that you then have a more sophisticated understanding of the intervention. I mean, if you think about protocols, if someone's just doing, let's say, a CBT intervention without understanding that theory and the conceptual basis, they're not as sophisticated in understanding how that intervention should be applied or modified for the particular client that you're working with. And we believe this is the same with mindfulness and the meditative practices that we are now incorporating into theory. So that is in therapy. That is the reason why we thought this was really important to be doing now.
And so, Buddhist psychotherapy is not religion. It is a theory in psychology. It's been a long time since, new theories come. And when new theories come, lots of new programs and lots of new research. And since Buddhist psychotherapy is philosophically based in the teaching of the Buddha Gautama, we hope that this will generate a lot of new programs, a lot of new research, and understand theoretical foundations for the use of mindfulness. And as you understand the theoretical foundations, you're going to be much more sophisticated in how you apply it and definitely deepen your clinical skills. Thank you.
We have about 10 minutes, right?
I don't know.
So, I don't know. What time are we supposed to end? Are we done?
Are we?
2 minutes. So we can take one question possibly.
So I do a lot of mindfulness, as I'm sure a lot of folks do. What would you say, coming from a Buddhist psychotherapist perspective, would be the sort of difference in applying mindfulness? You talk about a more sophisticated understanding where it comes from. Can you give kind of a practical example of that?
Okay, for example, when someone says, doesn't work for me, right? And breath doesn't work for me. What you don't understand is that mindfulness meditation, the very first assignment is to make sense contact with something that is actual, one of his physical senses. So if somebody says, breath doesn't work for me, you can say, oh, well, focus on breath. Focus on sound. So do meditation with sound as your object of contemplation as opposed to breath. If you don't understand the theory behind it, you wouldn't be able to make that adjustment, right? We've taught this course for, 5 years now, and many of the students will come and say they can't engage with the breath, but they're able to engage with the sound. And the sound, engaging in any aspect of the sense contact, is going to get you to the same place. That's something that you can learn from the theory. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, everyone. We hope that you'll check out the book, and thank you for making it here today.